All right, I'm going to do a brief presentation here about how there's nothing new in the world and how we can get over the anxiety and frustration that is there when we see the changes of our environment. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. Now, what's important about what I'm going to share today is that human behavior changes very little. So if you want greater influence, if you want greater control of your own life, if you want better results in your career or business, then listen very closely. So fear is a motivator that causes people to take action. It's a fight or flight syndrome. You're either going to do something or you're not going to do anything. And so the media uses fear in order to get you to move. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there'll be a health scare and then the commercials will be pharmaceutical companies. Now this isn't on accident. This is called a set-up. So ultimately, the fear headline, the scare headline, establishes a political position or a medical position or a commercial position to set up the commercials. Regularly, television is about commercials. Now, the same thing goes on YouTube and the other platforms that have videos, because the more scared you are, the more likely you are to tune in. But the problem is the dopamine and the anxiety and the chemicals that it produces in your body actually leaves you quite worn out and produces a negative effect in your ability to think. In fact, by keeping your mind full of distractions, in which unfortunately this video could be a distraction for some, it makes it easier to implant ideas and concepts that you may not otherwise be a part of. So yes, evil people exist and they do evil things, but so do good people. And historically, there is nothing new in this world. What I enjoy is reading historical documents, religious books and other things from multiple cultures. And what I'll discover is there are more similarities than differences. And in these similarities, you see the king that is too arrogant. It overcomes and causes problems that people have to overcome. You'll see the bad decisions that people make and they'll have to live with in their life. These are not meant as entertainment. They are meant as education. And even in Aesop's parables and popular stories, you will find that hero's journey. Well, the hero doesn't always exhibit the traits of being a hero and doesn't perform such as a hero. And because of this, we have to understand the various states in which humans will go through. Now, I'm not going to go through those various states, but I want you to observe in your environment and see that you're told it's bad, but are you ever told how to measure whether the environment is bad or good? So they say, this political leader is bad and he's trying to kill people and he's doing all this bad stuff. Again, do they give you the skills to know whether they're good or bad? Or are they just giving you an opinion and trying to motivate you to take specific action? In fact, I will give you 3 specific actions you can take that help insulate you from this kind of distraction and ultimately move you towards the outcomes that you're looking for. But there's a quote, never let a good crisis go to waste. Now, Hillary Clinton is given credit for this quote, but it's been said for 1,000 years. If something bad happens, it is now the reason why a certain political group or a certain leader will now have influence. So the January 6 riots, the January 6 insurrection is a reason for X. The Twin Towers getting hit is a reason for Y. The ocean, there's a seasonal change in climate, and that's a reason for such and such. These fear factors are designed for systemic control. So when someone says, hey, look, oh, it's the worst it's ever been, and I long for those good old days. Well, how do you know the good old days were as good as history makes them out to be? Very often, these massive events, if you are a historian and you start building that additional context, you'll realize that all this stuff's happened before. 1970s, we had massive inflation. 1980s, we had massive inflation. 2008, the mortgage market crashed. But yet we still survive. My argument is that when you take the time to do the homework, which takes a little bit of time, you will discover that today is better than you could ever imagine. And if only you had the mental independence in order to do more of what you want, then you can leave some of these things behind. So the struggles and tribulations come in cycles. It's going to be bad for a while. What do they say? Good men make hard times. Oh, no, hard times make good men. Good men make hard times. The point is that when you get used to things being really good for a long time, we lose the skills to maintain and keep things good. We kind of drop our guard. So again, let's go through those 3 items real quick here. Number 1 is you're going to have clear goals and objectives. See, when a bad thing happens and the outside world focuses you on that bad thing, they're not focusing you for your goals and objectives. They're focusing you because of their objectives. Think about this. News media, whether conservative or liberal, is a billion-dollar industry. There are advertisers to keep happy. There are stats and information about who's viewing and who's not. There's a game there that fits their objective. Now, over history, who owns the media? Well, individuals who want to maintain control and perspective. You've seen it slip in the news where they said it's the news job to maintain the story, to maintain the perspective and the thought of individuals. It is all propaganda. Now, that doesn't mean it's not valuable, but ultimately, a lot of these scares have been going on for millennia. So for example, climate change. I'm not saying whether climate change is real or it's not, but for the last several hundred years, there have been concerns about warming and cooling and, the sun's got to explode and the solar flares are going to kill everything. All of that could be true, but it also could be heavily exaggerated, but none of it focuses on actual solutions. We just had $40 billion sent to Ukraine. Now, a few months ago, Elon Musk was told that $40 billion, rather than buying Twitter, could solve world hunger. And now the U.S. is sending $40 billion to another country in a war that, don't they care about world hunger? Again, these instances, while separate, have an overlap to show you that it is not your objective that people are going for, it is their objective. So what you need to do, and it's this enlightened self-interest, is you need to have clear goals and objectives. Number 2 is you want to focus on outcomes and results. Yes, the whole world could burn up, droughts, food shortages, and everything like that, but what about your own yard? Could you have food growing at your home? Could you have a supply of resources? And ready.gov even talks about having a supply of food for 3 to 6 months so that if there was a natural disaster in your area, you're at least not going to be a victim of it, and you could help other people as well as help yourself by being prepared. So again, what is the outcome or the result that you desire? And how can you focus your energy there rather than having your energy distracted by the latest news story, the latest shooting? Did you know in 1800s, there was a guy that put dynamite under a school to blow up a bunch of students, okay? There have been mass murders all the way back to Genghis Khan. It's the way humans function. Human behavior doesn't change. Now, as much as there's bad behaviors, there's actually good behaviors as well. There's people who are inventing, they're inventing vaccines, but not all the vaccines have been good. But ultimately, they're inventing medical procedures. They're inventing methods of care. We live longer today. We are happier today, except we are heavily distracted. So again, weak people will echo the fear because they don't have clear goals and they're not focused on outcomes, and that emotion even becomes a bit addictive. Do you know people in your life that have that kind of drama? That there's just always something going wrong with them? Well, you need to remove yourself from those people and focus again on your clear goals and objectives, on the outcomes and results that you desire. And finally, number 3 is you've got to ask yourself, where is the profit and opportunity here? Now, we criticize Hillary Clinton and all the other people that said never let a good crisis go to waste. But again, they're not looking at the crisis. They're looking at the opportunity. And they're looking at an opportunity to advance their outcomes and their goals and objectives. Well, what if you opt out of that? What if you say, hey, look, I understand there's a lot of bad stuff going on in this world, but I'm going to do my part in my corner of the community, and I'm going to do for my family what is necessary to be independent, to be sustainable, to be free, to have liberty. Because you know the smallest minority is you. There's the minority of one. You as an individual. You as someone who's capable of making decisions and then actually exercises the steps necessary to make a decision. Now, that is a huge burden. That is a burden on you. It's a burden on your family, because there will be times where you'll go do the homework and you'll realize that what you're being taught or told is not true. Now, again, I have no opinion one way or the other. There's good vaccines, there's bad vaccines. I am fully vaccinated, but I have not taken the COVID shot because of the way that was pushed through. Now, the underlying point I'm making, though, is that my opinion has no value at all, because I could be right and I could be wrong. What's your opinion based on your time, experience, and your own homework? So rather than being emotionally drawn into things, gain some context, grab a history book, go to the library, and just do a little bit of reading. Turn off the distractions and do a little bit of reading. Understand that media is focusing on their objectives, and that's why they're sensational, because the emotional element is what keeps you returning. I know if I was more emotional and entertaining, I'd have more subscribers and more people following what I'm doing. I'd be an influencer, but ultimately that's not my goal. That's not my objectives. In fact, the reason I do these programs is to improve my speaking skills and to be able to explain topics more clearly and understandably. Now, that's why I know that if I was more sensational and entertaining, that I'd have more of an audience. But again, I'm not looking for a broad audience. I'm looking for a few individuals that have enough sense to do the homework, to know what works and what doesn't, and to repeat what works. If you want to gain influence, you want to gain power and control of your own life, it starts with your own life, not powering through other people. Again, every event that has happened or will happen in the future, there's some rhyme of it in the past. You can look at that and say, okay, well, look, when the economy failed in ancient Greece, what did they do? When Rome fell, what did they do? What did the survivors look like? What were the actions and behaviors that they had versus other people? During the Revolutionary War in the United States, who were the winners? Who were the losers? How did that work out? Enslaved people, for example. Every culture on the planet has been enslaved. Every skin color has been enslaved at one time or another. How did people overcome that versus continually stay in that position? What if some of these folks want to keep you a slave? What if some of these folks are telling you these things and rallying people up and saying, you know, this oppression is built into the system? Well, maybe it is. So in history, where has that oppression been built into the system, yet people still prospered? That's a question to ask yourself. Again, fear is a motivator, and by making people afraid, they are more likely to do rather than think. And if you're not thinking, you're often going to do stuff based on other people's goals, other people's objectives and outcomes, and ultimately other people's profit and opportunity. I'm saying switch that over. There are plenty of examples in history where somebody has said, look, I'm not playing the game that you're playing. They said, look, I have different goals. I have different objectives. They say, look, I'm focusing on results for my family and my community. And they've gone forward and found the profit. They found the opportunity. You can look at Booker T. Washington. You can look at Malcolm X, for example. Those individuals spoke plainly and openly about their situation and how to overcome the situation. You can look at the founding fathers of the United States, the founding mothers of the United States. You can go beyond what has been hidden from you. And it's not necessarily hidden because they have a scheme. It's selective presentation. So they have their goals, they have their objectives, they have their profits, and they say, well, look, if I share this story, it's very important to look at what people are not talking about. but it's a selective. If I share this story, I'm going to move my goal forward. Now, again, if you can get masses of people to believe things that are not true, or even things that are true, but in a context that benefits you, yes, you gain power and control. But if you can't in your own household make decisions in a logical way, and in a self-interested way, or in a way that helps you and your neighbors, then you're not going to be able to do it on scale. So again, some of the strategies we teach in strategic relationships, they work on scale. Marketing, propaganda, influence, they work on scale. But if you can't make clean and clear decisions, you're going to adapt behavior that is serving other people. So again, this could be a complex topic, and we could go through specific examples in history about history repeats itself, but a lot of these channels they censor what they don't believe is unique, and there's nothing wrong with that. Essentially, they're doing what we've talked about. You know, the fear is real. It exists. They apply it to people in order to make the people more malleable, and then ultimately influence the people towards their outcomes and goals. What I'm saying is you can opt out of this by having your own goals and objectives, by focusing on your outcomes and results that are best for you and your family, and finally, looking for the profit, looking for the opportunity. Now this, again, these skills are not to take advantage of people. There are people out there today that will blow up a story in the news just so they can control people, so they can get votes, so they can get a certain law or something on the books passed. That is not right. But then again, it's human behavior. Human behavior doesn't change. And the only way to fight against that is to have the independence of mind, the independence of resources, and ultimately to be the minority of one. To understand that what you do for yourself is necessary so that you can do for others. And so that if anybody is having problems around the world, if you can't solve that problem in your own world, then don't put your 2 cents into it. Essentially, live your best life, and if your neighbors live in their best life, both of you guys are going to work out just fine, and you're going to have an abundance, you're going to have that influence that you're looking for, you're going to have that sustainable power, and it's all going to come nice and clean. Now again, you can manipulate people and use these methods for evil, but you can also use them for good. So if you can point out, and you're not going to convince a fool. It just doesn't work that way. But if you cannot be a fool, if you could, be less stupid, again, those in power want you to be dumb. They want you to be scared. They want you to be like little chickens that every time they shake the food can, you come a-running. Again, it's your clear goals and objectives. It's outcome orientation and results orientation. And it is finally asking, where's the profit in this? Something bad happens. Look, you can decide not to be involved in it. You can decide not to be impacted by it. And you can ultimately choose your own adventure. You can walk the path that's right for you. You can support liberty, freedom, and the rights of others without impacting other people and removing their rights for what you believe to be the absolute. Now, again, there's a little bit of objectivism in here. There's a little bit of, the meaning of is. In a podcast, we don't have time to go over all those details, but the key to understand is that anything that's happening today, whether good or bad, has happened in the past, and you can use that historical context to inform yourself and then keep yourself on the right track for the outcomes that you're looking for. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. I want to thank you for being a part of what we've done today. I'll see you in the next program. I'm here to help transform business relationships into profits guaranteed. Visit us at www.insidestrategicrelations.com, and I'll see you in the next program.